In this video, we are going to cover one of the most important social contract theorists, and he is Rousseau, J.J. Rousseau. Now, apart from Hobbes and Locke, Rousseau has a bit different picture of human nature, society, and contract. Rousseau lived in between 1712 to 1778. He induced the revolutionary upsurge that shook the French polity to its foundations. French Revolution. In fact, Rousseau is regarded as the source of inspiration of the Great French Revolution, which occurred in 1789. J.J. Rousseau, to some, appeared as a great champion of individualism. Others viewed him as a collectivist. Popper described him as a romantic collectivist. Rousseau was a mid-18th century French philosopher. He was born in Geneva in a French family. He had a troubled childhood. His mother died during his birth, and he grew up as a neglected child. He did not have any type of noble patronage. Unlike any other thinker in the history of political philosophy, he was not fortunate enough to have noble patronage or steady employment. He wasn't regular to anything. What led him to an attempt to recapture his lost innocence and seek moral redemption? It is said that his sense of guilt and troubled childhood or conscience led him to do so, and which is often reflected in his literary and philosophical writing. He had a sort of rebellious character against the established norms. He did not believe in regular working hours. A sort of deviant behavior he used to exhibit when it comes to established norms of social behavior. Despite that, he wrote so many important things which changed the course of political thinking. And these writings include Discourse on the Science and Arts, Discourse on the Origin of Inequality, Discourse on Political Economy, and, of course, the Social Contract. His leading literary works were Emile, which he wrote in 1762. It's a novel, embodies Rousseau's educational philosophy, and another important literary work is The Confessions, which he wrote in 1782. It contains his autobiographical account. Now, we are concerned about his theory of social contract, how he differs from Hobbes and Locke's theory of social contract. What is his idea of a state of nature? how man is compelled to come out of state of nature. Now, in his discourse on inequality, Rousseau describes natural man as a noble savage. Noble, yet savage. Contradictory personality. Idyllic blissfulness and primitive simplicity. So this is Rousseau's human being in the state of nature. In this state of nature, all men are equal, self-sufficient and contented. Liberty in the state of nature is a great boon. Everyone is equal, free. And what happens to that state of nature then? If that is so free, everyone is equal, human being is in this state of being a noble savage, idyllic blissfulness, and primitive simplicity. What happens to this state of nature? Rousseau complains that in due course of time, when population increases and the treasures of nature start depleting, it is no longer possible for man to enjoy natural liberty as before. The scarcity problem. When population is increasing, the question of scarcity. Who gets what, when, how, and why? This question comes into human beings' mind. Apart from this, with the development of arts and science, private property comes into existence. It's obvious because when you are raising questions, how much do I need? How much do I possess? Then obviously there will be division of labor. In other words, we can say Rousseau is telling us natural liberty now is threatened because of changed circumstances, increasing population, development of arts and science. So when the forces of nature no longer sustain man, they have to consolidate their own force to save themselves. Human being is getting rational. Now, you are no longer dependent on nature. So this necessitates establishment of civil society. You have to regulate your own affairs. Nature cannot sustain you. You have to find out ways to carry forward your lives. So why a civil society is created by a human being according to Rousseau? It is to maintain their freedom. Man is creating the civil society for the purpose of maintaining their freedom. And in fact, Rousseau says in Social Contract, and it's a very popular statement, that man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. How contradictory it is. You're born free, but you are in chains. Who puts you in chain? What are the causes of this kind of limited lifestyle? What are the restraints? According to Rousseau's earlier views, the state is an evil. So he's not happy with the state. As we made it clear that he's a sort of rebellious character, not believing in established institutional arrangements. For him, during his earlier times, when he was evolving philosophically, state is an evil for him. Its formation becomes necessary due to inequalities among men. So In some ways, Rousseau here is anticipating Marx as far as the origin of the state is concerned. However, he changes, or we can say that he modifies his ideas regarding his state, and he no longer views state in negative sense. In his work, The Social Contract, written by him in 1762, Rousseau takes a modified view of the civil state. So this is his opinion about the institution of a state, which is modified now. When man abandons, he says, when man is coming out of the state of nature and enters into civil society through the social contract, he is compensating the loss. What is the loss? The freedom which he lost by entering into civil society through the social contract with the help of this state of institution. He is compensating this freedom. So he is telling us that what man is losing by social contract is nothing but his natural liberty and his all rights. What are these rights? All rights when he was in blissful states. Now what he is gaining in civil liberty? When he is going for contract, in civil liberty, he is gaining all the rights back which he was individually possessing. So in the form of civil liberty and the property which he was possessing, he is getting it collectively back. Now he is justifying his state here. He's justifying, but not as a manifestation of the inequalities in society, but as an instrument for the protection of liberty. How to protect liberty. So, state can be one of the instruments for the protection of liberty, according to Rousseau. This is his argument about state. Now, what are the terms of contract for him? Of course, Rousseau, like Hobbes, is postulating a single contract and is creating absolute, individual, and inalienable sovereignty. Contract for him goes like this, that each of us, every man, each of us puts his person and all his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will. So I'm giving up my rights, I'm giving up my all powers under the supreme direction of the general will, and we all are supposed to give our powers to the custody of supreme direction of the general will. And what we are gaining back in our corporate capacity as member, as an individual part of the whole. What we are gaining, everything, we are part of that general will. He is distinguishing himself as an exponent of popular sovereignty here. How does he do that? When I'm giving up my rights to govern myself and I'm expressing faith in common good, in general will, that is the supreme will, and if everyone is doing the same thing, I'm becoming part of the bigger freedom. where I can exercise more rights than what I was individually able to do. So when man acts in the state against his own will, under the direction of the general will, he is not losing his freedom. In fact, the constraint of the general will is instrumental. Why it is instrumental? Because it secures individuals' larger and ultimate freedom. And it is reconciling freedom of each individual with freedom of all. So this is how Rousseau, in his typical style, postulates a condition when man can be forced to be free. So when you are put under contract, in fact, you are forced to be free. In the state of nature, you have all rights, but in a civilized society with the increasing population and development of arts and science, you are no more free. Now, how to reclaim that freedom? You are forced to be free through that contract. He is creating popular sovereignty, and he's vesting this popular sovereignty in the general will. And this is, of course, a unique contribution of Rousseau. Why? Because it laid down the foundation of modern democracy. Now, let's take a brief look at what is general will, and which is at the heart of Rousseau's doctrine. It must be distinguished from other types of human will. He is insisting, Rousseau himself is insisting, that general will is always right, and that the will that one has as a citizen when one thinks of the common good. So when I'm thinking about public good, I have that will. Common good carries that will. But when I'm thinking my own interest, I'm not thinking about general will. It's not my particular will as a private person. There is a confusion regarding this. Many other writers have used the distinction between actual will and real will in order to explicate Rousseau's distinction between particular will and general will. So what is actual will then? There are scholars who identify the existence of two types of will, actual will and real will. And it is argued that the presence of these two types of will is the source of conflict within the mind of man. Actual will is motivated by man's immediate selfish interest, reflected in his ordinary self. It prompts individual towards gratification of his desires. This real will is inducing him to act of reason. It is transient, unstable, and inconsistent. It changes from moment to moment. Now, how real will differs from actual will? Real will is reflected in one individual's better self. It is stable, constant, consistent, and determinate. And man's freedom consists in overcoming his actual will. When you are able to overcome, actually you are becoming free. Real will is expression of your true freedom, because it is subordinating one man's self-interest to the interest of the community. That is common interest or common good, which is shared by each and all. So you are losing your personal freedom by becoming a member of that political society, but at the same time you are gaining much more freedom than what you were able to possess individually. So real will is motivated by ultimate collective interest. By doing this, Rousseau is trying to establish popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty is nothing but the supreme authority of the general will in society. It is reflected in the higher self of each member of the community, morally superior to any other expression of will. It is elevated to the position of an absolute, unlimited, and inalienable sovereignty because it reflects the common will of all right-thinking persons. It does not rely. So the concept of popular sovereignty is not relying on any principle of higher laws. It is embodying the best expression of the principle of classical democracy. However, it is suitable for only a small and uniform community because in contemporary society, in our times, popular sovereignty or direct rule is not suitable. But by doing this, he is laying down the foundation of popular sovereignty. That means the ultimate sovereign in any society is people, the individual in their collective existence. It's not the political institution who is sovereign, it is the individuals who are sovereign collectively. Society creates political institutions. That means individuals are sovereign. This is his theory of social contract, which laid down the foundation of our democracy.